Hi, I'm Kendall with the Rawls Group. The old African proverb, "It takes a village," illustrates the essential nature of a team approach to succession planning. Succession planning is a complex endeavor. As such, it requires leveraging the expertise of a diversity of backgrounds. Collaboration and different expert opinions provides a 360-degree approach, ensuring the possible, probable, and potential issues impacting your long-term vision are addressed. To provide insight into common questions received from business owners, we are leveraging the village of our valued strategic relationships. As you listen to this episode, you'll be able to immediately apply the key takeaways, and you'll come back for more. Now we're going to focus on: how do you navigate closely held business transitions when the next gen is not interested in continuing the family business?
Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Chaitovsky and I'm an audit partner at Citrin Cooperman & Company, a top 25 national accounting and advisory firm, and I'm currently the co-leader of the franchise accounting and consulting practice here at our firm. Today's topic is navigating closely held business transition when the next gen isn't interested in continuing the family business. This happens quite often and is not unusual. However, all plans have changed since COVID. The key choices are the same, with a twist. Typically, when the next gen is not interested in continuing with your legacy, you're left with two main choices: either liquidate the company or sell. COVID has affected those choices, but hasn't changed them. Liquidating may sound like the easiest approach, but it limits the value that you end up with, and you most likely walk away from all of the goodwill that you've built up over the years, especially post-COVID, when many business values have been downwardly affected, and it turns into a distress fire liquidation. Your second option would be to sell, which will impact the seller of a family business in two ways. Psychologically, are you ready to sell? Are you ready to make that move? As well as financially, how much will I end up with? Assuming you get past the psychological side and you're in the correct frame of mind to sell, and have reconciled with the fact that the next gen doesn't want to continue this business, selling is now on the table as your option. And now it's time to redeem all of your hard work and get the most value for all you've created. A little tougher post-COVID and under the new norm, but doable just the same. So here are 4 of probably a dozen steps you would need to go through before even looking for that buyer. Number 1, stabilizing your cash flows. One of the biggest impediments for potential buyers, and truly one item that cuts the value for the seller, is a company with bleeding cash. This is absolutely a differentiator between a sale and a distressed sale. Number 2, now that cash is stabilized, it's time to identify risks in your company and fix them. Kind of a fix the bus while you're driving it. Focus on improving efficiency, improving labor, reviewing and improving your sourcing contracts, review vendor supply agreements, work on your workflow quality and technology. When a company is interested in purchasing another company, they focus very much on the technology of that company and how much has to be revised to bring it up to today's day and age. Getting to know these areas well so there are fewer surprises during due diligence when these questions come up. Third step is often overlooked but really impacts the sale and your net proceeds. You need to work with your tax advisors early into the procedures and understand the most tax-efficient method of putting cash in your pocket. Are you looking for long-term cash? Are you looking for cash up front? Is this a business that you'd like to take the money, eventually put it into trusts for the rest of the generations? This is all something that has to be worked out, and see how much cash you'll end up with in the most tax-efficient way. Step 4 is know your value. Not what you think it's worth, but what is the company really worth? This will give you a chance to adjust your expectations, and I can't think of a worse feeling than the emotions of selling a business that the next gen doesn't want, and then feeling as if your hard work wasn't rewarded in that sale. Don't let grandiose expectations distort reality. Stay safe, everyone. We're in this together, and with patience, we will all survive it together. Thank you.
Situation, you have a couple basic options. The first, if you want to keep the business, You can either hire a third party from outside the company to come in your absence as your successor and continue it, or you look at hiring from within or promoting from within a key manager to take over that role. In either one of those events, you need to address concerns such as what does a pay plan look like for that person? What does equity look like in that? We're looking at non-qualified deferred comps, or do we want to give them a piece of the pie? If we do that, then there's a consideration for shareholders agreements and documentations. But probably most critical to that dynamic is defining what interaction looks like between the family and that successor, who's a non-family member. How much power are we giving that person to run the company? And how much power are we giving the board of directors of the family unit to hire and fire and make decisions in the company, even though they're not active in day-to-day? And that's really the difficult part of it. Because ultimately, in a lot of cases, you might look at this as an option to saying, I know my kids aren't interested in continuing the business, but who knows about the grandchildren? And this would be essentially a succession bridge for the grandchildren. And we can talk about that for a very long time. The other option that many business owners look at is saying, I like what I'm doing. I want to work as long as I can. And if the kids want to sell the business, they can sell the business. And in that case, what you want to make sure you do is create the structure for which the kids have the option to sell the business, because you don't necessarily want to force a sale. Just simply do it because no one knows when it's their time to go, and therefore you really don't know what kind of economic environment you'll be in. So in either case, you really have to pay attention to what that governance looks like and what are the ground rules for the next generation, so that they have the flexibility to hire an outside third party, continue a successor from within, or sell the business when they need to.
Thank you to our strategic partners, The Village, for participating and sharing your perspective. Do you have a burning question you want to discuss with an expert? Feel free to submit it via the Ask an Expert link featured on the page. Continue to listen to the series now or come back later for more. Each question featured may want you to learn something new.